Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Al Stock Trade. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and go over and discuss an interview with CNBC and Alex Karp regarding the economic and geopolitical outlook from the Davos meeting. So, I hate to be on the negative side of things, but I do agree with Alex Karp. The outlook of the world is starting to become more bleaker and darker, with essentially a war literally happening where a country is literally invading another piece of land. Talks of China and Taiwan, a possible invasion there. And, you know, sadly, I hate to say this, but, Palantir is positioned to be successful during bad times. That's essentially how their software is essentially performing. And if we can do, and I don't think personally this is appropriate because this is war, but Alex Karp does say something interesting which I have heard before. The Palantir software, if you ask any Ukrainian on the battlefield, they would say that the Palantir software has essentially elevated them in being able to essentially fight this war. And, it just so happens we're living in an era where, it's almost like the Confederates versus the Union. There was one war where the Confederates had less, in terms of less people, just like how Ukrainians have less people, but yet the general was so sophisticated and he was able to win a lot of these battles. And the Union thought that the Confederates had a lot of folks, when in reality, no, they just had experience. And I believe that's what Palantir offers with this type of data. They're able to parcelate data and not only be able to affect a small military and being able to fend off a bigger and larger military like Russia. It gives them a ability to not only affect that area, but supply chain issues, COVID vaccinations. So I do believe Palantir is at a level now that is looks very appetizing. And, honestly, year to date, it is up 9%. So we're going to go ahead and look at this interview here, and we'll go from there. And I would like to hear your thoughts on the matter, but we'll stop it if anything interesting is stated. I'm going to put it at 1.5 times the speed. Let me know if it's too fast. Go ahead and decrease it here.
Alex Karp, thank you for being here.
I'm very happy.
How many times have we been doing this?
Many times. Yeah.
And we've been through a bit of a roller coaster in terms of the economy, in terms of the world, geopolitics, and everything. What is your sense now, and do you think the sensibility is here right now?
Look, we've been meeting for many years, and when we first met here and you filmed me, the idea that the world is disjointed, violent, unlikely to be pure and global, that world leaders would fight more than they get along, that there would be derision and division into major democracies, and that we'd see a war in Europe looked like the nightmare fantasy of something that you would not believe could happen. And of course, we built our company on the idea that the world is disjuncted, violent, but could be made better. I think the core issue for people behind closed doors at Davos is, okay, clearly the world is not going to be the way we thought it is. It clearly is not going to be more peaceful, less disjointed. How can we still make the world actually function in a separated, disjointed world where there is war in the heart of Europe?
Exactly. And, if you look at Palantir really got integrated hard during this meeting. A lot of partnerships, I believe, that are going to be coming off of this meeting. They realize how important the software is. And I believe in the next 5-10 years, we are going to start seeing this Palantir basically soar, at levels that retail investors anticipated earlier on, but no one believed in them.
Where Western allies are having to mobilize against their adversaries, including Russia and China, where people still want to have industry, where supply chains are disrupted, and where we have pandemics.
Your personal optimism or pessimism, though, right now? I mean, there's a lot of pessimism here.
Yeah, look, we built our company, and I believe in addressing the world as it is. We built our company around the way the world is now. I am pessimistic about the near future, very optimistic about what we can do to help that. So I agree with people around here, but you got to understand, especially in the tech industry, and to some extent here, but you have people that were just certain they were going to win. Everything was going to break their way. Sure, no one would go out with them in high school, but they're going to own the high school, and they're going to own the whole state, and everything's going to work out, and the gazillion dollars, and all of a sudden, all these assumptions aren't actually true. and they're in a little bit of a depression funk. And that's normal when things are not breaking away, when the world is changing away. But there's a lot of ways to actually make the world a better place. First of all, the West can show we actually have superior technology, and we're showing that.
When you said you're pessimistic short term, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I think that we are just learning as world organizations how to live in a world that is very different than we thought. So I don't think the war is likely to end in Ukraine. I don't.
You don't?
I think, look, it's very hard to know what's going to happen, but you have an adversary who is zero sum. If Putin goes home and says
Very
he
true.
lost, he will lose his life, his friends will lose their life, they'll lose all their money. And he'll go to his grave feeling that he lost, which he does not want to do. We in the West, most of us in the West, correctly believe if we allow these kind of things to happen, if we allow people to violate the sovereignty of a land and rape, pillage, and destroy people who are innocent in that land, that this will set a horrible precedent. So we can't allow that to happen. Also, we've shown that we develop superior technology, and combined with heroes on the ground, we can actually win. And so this is just still a class of culture.
That's a pessimistic view geopolitically of potential war and the like. What's your view of the economy and the ramifications? And maybe it's a ramification of war.
No, I think the chief thing hurting the economy is we're in an unknown zone where things are happening we didn't plan, like wars, trying to deal with the wars, inflation. We're also highly divided inside of our countries in the West.
What do you make of, you have a lot of corporate clients here. It's not just governments. The feeling from them, their ability to buy, spend more or not right now.
Well, they're going to, just like in a war situation, because our clients are not in a war situation where it's like not like Ukraine, but de facto it's the same thing. We have to survive under much harsher conditions. And what are they going to do? They're going to figure out what works, what doesn't, what's a PowerPoint, what's a fraud, what's actually transforming the business. American businesses here by and large have a huge advantage, which America underestimates. What makes Americans interesting? We are very, very pragmatic. We adapt, we learn, we change.
You said, what's a PowerPoint and what's a fraud? And the reason I raise it is a lot of people who are running around either trying to pretend they're businesses like yours or pretend they're all sorts of businesses. What do you think of the washout that's happened in Silicon Valley, across the world?
It's very, very, very hard to be joyous because people are in pain. But I mean, we compete against PowerPoints and basic and technology that is useful but not transformative. What the situation like the current one we're in, whether it's war in Ukraine, like why did they adopt Palantir? Because you can't afford a PowerPoint when your life is on the line. What's happening to businesses? Their revenues are going down. The regulation is going up. Their workforce is unhappy.
And that's extremely true. I mean, you're basically seeing many people get laid off. Google's laying off people. Microsoft's laying off people. And then here you have Palantir basically growing. It's this company is for the long term. This company is for the long term, and it's here to stay for the next the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, this company is going to be around for a very long time. I mean, just look at we can go ahead and we will go ahead, break down their fundamental balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows. But based off of their assets to liabilities, you can already see that picture from that angle.
For lots of reasons, they have to somehow rebuild their culture and attack. And that exposes things in your business that are both good, bad, ugly, and transformative. And of course, everybody wants to be like, there's the Palantir of my cockroach.com farm. And it's like, we are the best Palantir for making sure that cockroaches and others get proper nutrition. And yeah, that works under bad conditions, but it does not under good conditions. It does not work under bad conditions.
What do you make, though, of the valuations that have taken place in tech land, including to your own company?
Look, we've been at this for almost 20 years. Our valuation has been very high and very low. What we're very interested in is how is the business doing? I run this business for better or worse. I know how the business is doing. And by the way, over the medium term, not the short term, valuations do reflect the health, integrity, and success of a business. And in the short term, that fluctuation of valuations expose people who are out on the beach naked. If you're out swimming naked, which by the way I embrace, it's kind of hard when it's just like if you're out here without the proper coat, it exposes the weakness in certain businesses.
Exactly. And this is a Warren Buffett type of methodology about basically swimming naked. And then when the tide is basically lifted, you're going to basically see who's naked. And that's when financial conditions become tightening. And you can see Palantir is not really affected. I mean, just look at how much they have around $2 billion plus in cash. I mean, come on now, right?
In the end, especially in America, we're adaptive. The stronger businesses will grow, thrive, expand, and we'll end up with a much.
What do you tell investors who say, "Look, this stock has fallen"? I
can tell you. Well, investors, I tell employees, look, there's market conditions that affects the share price.
But is it market conditions? Is it the way the market views your particular company? That there are investors who are frustrated with what they call dilution, right?
Right. There are legitimate and concerns we have to address. Dilution. What are the revenues going to be? Where are the revenues?
In terms of dilution, what they're talking about is the Palantir stock has been heavily diluted, and that was their ability to essentially try to keep these top engineers at Palantir and not have them go into Microsoft and Google, which is, honestly their competitors, or CrowdStrike, or, Snow. So essentially these are type of things that they were doing, but we'll discuss those on future videos.
Revenue is going to develop, how transformative the products, all legitimate concerns. What the investors we have, primarily our most important investors, are coworkers. What we believe is our business is stronger than it's ever been. Right. And we have a lot of evidence that convinces us. We believe our conviction will convince the world over a multi-year period. And that's what I care about.
Right. And that
Yeah, it's more of a long-term approach, a multi-year period, 5 to 10 year period. People are going to look at Palantir differently, and especially people that are during this time that looked at the stock and not have done nothing. I would love to basically see them in the next 5 to 10 years.
But the question is, were the valuations before? When this stock was a $40 stock,
Yeah, look,
did you say to yourself, that was Alice in Wonderland crazy town?
Let me
And that is true. It was overvalued, especially from an intrinsic value point of perspective. And I can't wait to see his response.
tell you something. One of the things that's been most helpful about running this company is that when you're kind of like outside the norm, a little bit of a freak show, like I never thought we were that good when the share price was 40, whatever.
Exactly.
I didn't think we're that bad when the share price is 6 or whatever it is. I know that.
Yep.
I know what makes the business strong, and I'm focused on that. And I honestly never thought I was that perfect at 40. I don't think I'm that bad now. I think it's just like you work on the business, you have a huge problem if you're like full on like normal Silicon Valley capitalist pretending you care about altruism or whatever, that you actually judge your life by the share price.
Let me just ask you one other investor-related question, which is who should the investor base compare your company to? So some people say, oh, it's a consulting company. We should look at Accenture. It should be a multiple of that or not. Other people say, oh, it's a software company. It should be it's somewhere to be in the middle.
You know what?
What is it?
If you doubt what our company is, talk to the Ukrainians, talk to the CEO of Hertz, talk to BP, talk to the special forces. They'll tell you this product saved my life or made my company better. And if you don't have to believe me, believe them.
There was a fascinating piece in the Washington Post that really described what Palantir has done in its involvement in Ukraine in a very detailed way. I mean, you've alluded to it in some of the interviews we've done over the years. How is that changing the business? And now that that's public, if you will, is it changed the kind of conversation you can have?
Look, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the COVID vaccine and saved millions of lives globally. We built what we call multi-constellation, what's often called the digital kill chain. And they're category-defining products. So when you deliver these products to the market, just honestly, people say this isn't going to exist, this isn't valuable, but then it changes the market. And then the market is the Palantir market. Now, that doesn't mean everyone in the world's going to buy our product, but it means most of the sensible people in the world are going to buy from the category we defined. And that is exactly what's happening in the warfighting context. And it's happening because of, you have to look at this.
Especially in the Davos meeting. They're like basically watching how Palantir single-handedly was able, with the powers of Ukraine, be able to make a difference. And now they got clients lined up each left and right.
A small country that galvanizes its country, brings its heroes in for, and they're up against the third most important army in the world, and they win. Every single country in the world that finds out, they ask, well, how did you do it? What can we do? What is the cost of that? How long does the implementation take?
Exactly, and this is where Palantir has enough food to eat for years of years.
I always ask you this, but given the increasing tensions it appears between the U.S. and China, where are we? What are our capabilities? What do you worry about?
We are very lucky. The Chinese government is very focused on internal security. The U.S. has to heavily, and its allies focus on external security. We are better at software than the Chinese, but we're also better at focusing on something we care about. How do you repel an adversary that wants to invade your territory? It should be the single focus of and we are partly because we're better at it, and partly because that's the need.
If we had a conversation here 10 years time, would China have taken Taiwan, tried to take Taiwan? What do you think happens?
I think it largely depends on how powerful our software hardware hero quotient is. If we continue to do what we're doing in the Ukraine, look, if Russia had known what Russia knows now, I think there's a pretty strong chance they would not have invaded.
SPACs.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting because you see the United States talking to NVIDIA and telling NVIDIA not to sell to China regarding their top AI chips. And it's honestly, when you see a government do that, what does that tell you about how valuable these types of semiconductors and AI technology is worth? It really is the oil of the future.
What was the lesson of investing in SPACs?
And this is where I like Alex Karp, because he admits when he's wrong.
Most companies were not prepared for bad weather like we were. Stay away from companies that are not prepared for bad weather.
That was the lesson, but you invested in companies that were not prepared for bad weather.
Exactly. We should be more investing in ourselves, not investing in companies that are not prepared for bad weather.
How did that happen?
Look, we are the world's best, in my view, at building software before people need the software. You make mistakes along the way. We made a mistake. We corrected it. We're moved on.
There it is. You know what I mean? They made a mistake, invested. SPACs literally went to book. They were taking a long shot. They were trying to basically pull a Elon Musk purchasing, literally using a company, Tesla, to day trade Bitcoin and making a profit off of that. But unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. So overall, what's happening right now in terms of smart money, dumb money, we're having a lot of retail investors. Let me go ahead and exit the screen share here so I can share with you this screen here. So essentially, if you go ahead and look at smart money, dumb money, you start to see dumb money got really excited recently, hence why the market rallied. But, smart money has become consistent in terms of not really getting too excited. But now dumb money is starting to cool off. So, we may see some more downturn. We'll definitely keep you updated on the matter. But overall, if you were to basically open up the charts for Palantir, just to look at just from the technical perspective, and we'll go ahead later on looking at the fundamental perspective. So please subscribe because we're about to engage in more Palantir discussion. So overall, if you look at the interactive chart directly from our stock terminal, which you can find more information about in the link down below, here is the 200 MA, which is an important simple moving average that we look at to look at any trend reversals. Here is the support and resistance lines in terms of what Palantir needs to cross in order to make it a support line. If you go ahead and here is the Fibonacci sequence retracement. We basically touched on to the Fibonacci retracement of $7.28, and we got rejected amongst that. And now we're essentially trying to see if we are able to go ahead and retest that to essentially pass it to go to this resistance line and continuously go from resistance, Fibonacci, 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 resistance, Fibonacci, resistance, Fibonacci, resistance. And we're going to see kind of how that works. Keep in mind, this yellow line right here that you see is a simple moving average for the 20-day. And if we break that, then we should expect more downturn. But understand that we have a hardcore level of support here at the lower end of the Fibonacci sequence retracement at $6. Overall, we do see the MACD doesn't look like it's reversing, but we are midway on the RSI. Again, 70 is over valued in terms of the, overbought, technically not overvalued, overbought, and 30 is oversold. So we're going to go ahead and continue doing this. Palantir had a pretty good day today at 4% increase, and literally year to date 9.86%. And honestly, a big chunk of that came from today. It's always a privilege, and I just want to go ahead and just comment down to this. So just be careful in terms of scammers, and there's a lot of people commenting down below. Unfortunately, I reached out to YouTube. Many YouTube content creators that are on the platform reached out to YouTube, and YouTube really hasn't done nothing about it, and Google hasn't done nothing about it. They did lay off a lot of people, so I doubt that this is kind of most likely last on their mind. And in terms of Palantir, I don't think it was an $80 stock. I think the highest was around 45-ish, but correct me if I'm wrong. All right, guys, it's always an honor, and definitely please like, comment, and subscribe, as it does help our channel grow so we can democratize financial information and be able to help retail investors thrive in the markets. It's a privilege, and I'll see you on the next one.